Shema Israel. Hope you enjoy this next study. My name's Dee. This is my wife, Millie.
So if you like what you see, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if you wish to reach out to us, you can email us at devotedtoyah@gmail.com.
Okay, so anyway, with that being said, with that context being given, let's now go back to Acts chapter 16, because that's the letter that was sent out. The letter that was sent out was, hey, just give them these 4 things to work on, okay? They're going to keep coming into Sabbath. They're going to keep observing the Sabbath, learning about the law of Moses. All right, so it says certain disciples were there named Timothy. Timothy's mom was a Judean. Okay, but his father was a Greek, so it's assumed that Timothy was most likely probably not circumcised. Therefore, it says here, Paul wanted to have him go on with him. So Paul wanted Timothy to go with him and travel with him. So he took Timothy and circumcised him. If circumcision was bad, Paul was sinning here. Paul was going against the order of the apostles of the council that they just had in Acts chapter 15. Nobody rebuked Paul for doing this. So that must mean that it wasn't wrong. I've heard Christians say, oh, the only reason why Paul did this was because of fear of the Jews. If Paul did an action based off of fear, it's sin. It doesn't even make any sense.
That doesn't even sound like Paul, his character either.
Paul doesn't fear man. He gave that up. He don't fear no man, right? So that's not even consistent, man. And, you know, another issue I have with that interpretation, it doesn't even make any sense, because if we go to Galatians chapter 2, now when Peter had come to Antioch, I withstood him to his face. He's talking about, who is it here? James? James. I think it was James. It said, but on the contrary, when they, all right, let's go further back a little bit. But from those who seem to be something, whatever they were, it makes no difference to me. So this is Paul writing. God shows personal favoritism to no man. For those who seem to be something added nothing to me. But on the contrary, when they saw that the gospel for the uncircumcised had been committed to me, as the gospel for the circumcised was to Peter, for he who worked effectively in Peter for the apostleship to the circumcised also worked effectively in me towards the Gentiles. So same spirit is working in both of them. They just have a different focused audience.
Yeah.
Paul was predominantly preaching to the uncircumcised. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that had been given to me, they gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship. They accepted them. Yo, these guys are legit. There's signs, wonders, and miracles happening. There's fruit to the ministry. They seem consistent in their walk. So they got approved by the official, original apostles. And he says that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. They desired only that we should remember the poor, the very thing which I also was eager to do. All right, verse 11. Now, when Peter had come to Antioch, I, Paul, withstood Peter to his face. Some issues. Because he was to be blamed. For before certain men came from James, he would eat with the Gentiles. As if that was wrong. That's not wrong. It's not wrong to eat with the Gentiles. But when they came, when the Jews and the apostles, James came, Peter withdrew himself, fearing those who were of the circumcision.
For the second time.
How is Paul going to be a hypocrite and fear the Jews and circumcise somebody based on fear of the Jews if he's withstanding Peter to his face?
Yep.
For for an act, for the same act. So for Christians to interpret Acts chapter 16 to say that Paul was circumcising Timothy out of fear, not that it was biblical or a good thing to do, is a straight up lie. It's not even sincere.
It's not in his character. It's more of Peter's character because he denied Messiah as well. So in fear of the Jews. That's the second time he's feared the Jews, the
Sounds about
circumcised.
right. All right, so Peter was fearing those of the circumcision, and the rest of the Jews also played the hypocrite with him, so that even Barnabas was carried away with their hypocrisy. Okay? But when I saw that they were not straightforward about the truth of the gospel, be consistent.
Yep.
Right? There's no fearing the Jews. First of all, there's nothing wrong with eating with a Gentile. Okay? The gospel's for them. But this is the beginning where I guess they're struggling with this stuff, right? They're struggling with, all right, how do we take the gospel and, you know, do we go to the Gentiles? Because Yahusha was telling us not to. He told us to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? But Yahusha, even though Yahusha said that during his ministry, he was still helping Gentiles. He helped the Canaanite woman. She's, you know, he's like, Yahusha said the children's bread, the bread of the Israelites, is not to be given to Gentile dogs like you, woman. And she said, well, master, even dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. You're my master. Please heal my daughter. And he was like, wow, I haven't seen any faith like this in all of Israel. And he gave her what she was asking for. So just because Yahusha said, do not go to the Samaritans or the Gentiles, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, that didn't mean that that was the only audience he was trying to go and save and minister to. He obviously ministered to Gentiles. But maybe Peter got a little carried away with that message. Maybe he forgot. And he's forgetting, you know, like, wow, this beautiful salvation and the gift of the Spirit is not just for us, the Israelites, it's for the world. Okay, maybe he forgot. He's slipping, you know, he's messing up a little bit. But he's not the only one slipping, you know. Accountability is everything. If you have a team of guys who are slipping, it doesn't help the situation. So let's continue here. The truth of the gospel. So they weren't being straightforward. They weren't being consistent with the truth of the gospel, which is the salvation is for all men. Okay. So Paul said, I said to Peter before them all. So he publicly rebuked him. If you, being a Jew, live in the manner of Gentiles and not as Jews, why do you compel Gentiles to live as Jews? First of all, Paul is saying here it is a good thing to compel Gentiles to live as Jews. That's what he's saying right here. What he's saying is not good is if you're compelling someone to live like a Jew, but you yourself are living like a hypocrite Gentile, a lawless Gentile. If you're living hypocritically, your message is not consistent with your lifestyle. That's what Paul is rebuking Peter for. If you, being a Jew, live in the manner of Gentiles and not as a Jews, why do you compel Gentiles to live it? So Peter was trying to compel the Gentiles to live like Jews. So Peter was doing something good. He was actually trying to teach Gentiles to live. But what happened? He got scared for some reason. Yeah. The Jews came around and he thought he wasn't allowed to be caught sitting with them. That's something that the Pharisees taught, that the Sadducees, the Pharisees and all that taught. So anyway, verse 15, we who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles, another confirmation that Gentiles is not some goal that we are to look up to and want to attain. Gentile, the title Gentile is something we are to frown upon. That's not our goal. That's not something we want to be, because Gentiles are out of covenant with Yah. You don't believe me? I'll come back to this. I know right now I'm just freestyling. This is all some stuff I memorized because this is my message. I'll come back. I'll work my way backwards, but right here. the whole chapter is about grace and faith and the gospel message, okay, which is for everybody. And it says here, therefore, remember that you once Gentiles in the flesh. The audience of Ephesians chapter 2 are physical Gentiles. This ain't spiritual. Ain't nothing spiritual here. This is physical. It says in the flesh. Whenever it says Gentiles in the flesh, that means it's literal, physical Gentiles. All right? And it says here, therefore, remember that you once Gentiles in the flesh who are called uncircumcised by what is called the circumcision, meaning the Jews are the circumcision. They're called circumcision. And the circumcision people call the Gentiles uncircumcised, right? Like, oh, that uncircumcised Gentile. Okay, so you who are called uncircumcision by the Jews, who are circumcised in the flesh by hands, okay, since they were born, that at that time you were without Messiah. At what time? Back in the day when you used to be Gentiles. That at that time you were without Messiah, being aliens from the commonwealth of who?
Israel.
Israel. And strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now, in Messiah, through Messiah Yahusha, you who were once far off, that's what a Gentile is. A Gentile is far off from God. You who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Messiah. Brought near to where? Israel, the commonwealth of Israel. Salvation, eternal life, the kingdom of God, riches, relationship with the creator of the universe. Okay, so just to go back real quick, I'm sorry, D-Rail, I'm on a roll right now. Just trying to nail this point here. Talking about this hypocrisy here again. Where is it at? That we should go, where is it at? Where is it at? Oh.
Up here, 2, verse 2.
Okay.
Right?
This verse 15 is why I went to that Ephesians 2. So Paul said, we who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles. That right, this phrase right here just lets you know this is not something we're trying to be. Okay? Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Yahushua Messiah. Going back to Acts chapter 15. That we're not saved by first keeping the law of Moses perfectly and being circumcised, and then we can be saved. That was never taught in the Old Testament. Abraham was not circumcised until 13 years after he received the promise and was declared righteous by Yahuwah for believing his promise. 13 years later, Abraham got circumcised.
He was like 99, I think.
Yep. Abraham circumcised his son first, right? Or his second son, something like that. The next thing was Israel didn't practice circumcision while they were 40 years in the wilderness, even though it was a command from Moses. So circumcision was never a prerequisite to be saved. Circumcision was always a command. It was always something to be, connected to being in covenant with the God of Israel and a child of Abraham, a seed of Abraham.
Whether a sign of set apartness.
Yeah,